Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name's Matt Wakeling, and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia, where for over the last 5 years I've been speaking to some of the leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Now, over the last couple of months, we've added a new show to the podcast. The interviews are continuing, but we've added on the Iconic Albums series. Now, in Iconic Albums, I'm joined by my friends Rhodes and Gabor, Josika, and we each choose an album to discuss each week that's had a significant impact on us as guitar players and musicians. This week, we are looking at Diesel's 1994 masterpiece, Solid State Rhyme. Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
You're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player. Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Welcome to Iconic Albums number 8. I'm joined by my friends Rhodes.
Hey Matt, hi Gabor.
And Gabor, Josika.
Hey Matt, hey Rob.
Great to see you guys. This is the show where we choose some guitar records that we think are iconic and talk all about it. This week we're talking about Diesel's album Solid State Rhyme. Rob brought this album to us. Do you want to kick us off, Rob?
I'd love to. This was a really tough choice. I wanted to pick one of Mark's records, and it was this one or it was Soul Lost Companion. It was a really tough choice, but I figured with the hit singles off this one that it sort of fit the iconic status a bit more. Before I get into the record, I just want to thank Jason McNamara's live streams with famous friends, where I got some information from, and Rob Wolf himself, who helped me out with a couple of stories here from the recording. So it was released on the 17th of November in 1994. And it was recorded during May and August of 94 at Freight Train Studios, which was Jimmy Barnes' house in Bowral.
I've recorded there.
Oh wow.
Hey.
Sorry.
Well, you're famous, man.
Maybe you'll have some insight and understand some of these stories. And then there was some additional recording done at Festival and 301. It peaked at number 10 and spent 10 weeks on the ARIA charts and won him his third best male artist award at the ARIAs. Third in a row.
Wow.
He won in 93 for Hep Fidelity and 94 for The Lobbyist and 95 for this one. This album kicked off his love of producing and arranging himself. You know, he'd had producers in the past, some great producers, but this was really his record from start to finish.
Wow.
Featured the singles Get It On, Chill Pill, 15 Feet of Snow, and All Come Together. And it's really hard on YouTube to find all of these clips. Now, you can find 15 Feet and All Come Together on his official YouTube channel, but Get It On and Chill Pill, nothing. Wow. So EMI, or whoever owns EMI now, BMG, Sony, get them up there. There's some great clips. And that's the little wrap up of that record. What do you think when you're listening to that, Matt?
Oh man, I love this record. I love it so much. And I agree with you. Soul Lost Companion is a fantastic record as well. I love both these records. I love a lot of Diesel records. But I think these two though are my favourites for sure. Actually, he's just released a new record too.
Yep, Alone with Blues just came out which 2 weeks ago.
Really cool. Like he's non-stop. Okay, back to Solid State Rhyme. I love the name. What a cool name for a record. And the artwork is awesome. The production is fantastic. So when you said it was him getting into production, that makes sense. There's so much good ear candy. Man, so much. I love the singles. All Come Together is probably my favourite Diesel song ever. It's pop perfection.
Yeah.
The production is, the song, of course the song always comes back to the song. The songwriting's brilliant. But the production's amazing. All these parts, and they just sit beautifully. Like the bass sound. Is that Diesel playing bass on that?
He plays everything on this record except Kane Baker on drums and Rob Wolf on all the keys. But even Diesel plays some keys.
Okay.
And then obviously there's the strings and the horns and a few special guests on backing vocals that we'll get to as this unfolds.
Yeah. Man, the bass on that's unreal. That little bass solo after the first chorus is the best.
He's a very underrated bass player.
Yeah.
He's had some good bass players with him over the years, namely Mr. Richie Vez.
Yeah.
Lovely man. Hey, Richie, if you're listening. But where were you when this album, so it dropped in 94, where were you at that time, Matt?
Where was I at? So 20-something, early 20s. Doing a lot of music by then, actually. So we look at some of the earlier records, Satriani, Living Colour, I was sort of getting it together, or trying to get it together. By now I was working as a music director at a church. I was playing gigs. I was doing lots of teaching. There was just guitar everywhere for me. So to hear all this, I was getting into some production on a very little scale, but when I hear the production on this record, I loved it. And the guitar tones, the octave solo in All Come Together is just the best ever. The gospel changes at the end, those organ parts. Yeah, so I was paying attention to the sounds. The EBow in 15 Feet of Snow.
Yeah, followed by the mandolin. That's killer.
I know. Far out. It's just genius. So I ended up getting an EBow as soon as I could. And annoying everyone with it for a long time.
For people at home, Gabor is showing off his EBows.
I'm holding up an
screen.
EBow. I've always got one nearby, just in case.
In case 15 Feet gets called on a gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just unreal. He's playing, like, I wore out Hep Fidelity on cassette. That was awesome. And I love the Johnny Diesel stuff, but Hep Fidelity just kicked it up for me anyway. So yeah, that was just a couple of things that I loved. And it was a good time in my musical journey, I think.
Awesome. And Gabor, was this the first time you heard this record?
All the way through, yeah. But it's so. I mean, I've been playing Diesel songs for, I don't know, the last 20 years in different bands and so on. I've actually been playing All Come Together as a song I've been playing like solo for I don't know how long now. It's really funny. I don't know if it's the same with you guys. When you play a song and you play it hundreds and hundreds of times, but you never listen to it. And then you listen to it again and you go, oh, this is kind of different to the way I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's not right. They play it wrong.
He plays it completely wrong. No, so 94, I moved to Australia. I came to Australia in October 93. So I was in grade 11 in 94. I was in school, and that's sort of just around the time when I started playing guitar. And I was... Diesel was on all, like Hey Hey Saturday and all those shows. He was on a lot. It was just, I think, because it was just that album just came out. So I remember a lot of these songs, but again, I haven't listened to them for ages. And when I listened to the album, which actually, I got to say, killer album. What a killer album. And actually, when you said that he produced it, because that was one of the things I was going to ask, who produced it, because I thought the production is just spot on that. Such good production on the album.
Yeah, Craig Porteals co-produced it with him, who's been with Mark on a lot of records.
Okay, yeah, it's a great sounding album, great songs. So I've heard a whole bunch of them, but I haven't heard him for years, and I probably listen to him differently because now, you know, when we talk about what album we're going to do, when I listen to the songs, I probably listen to him differently to if I would just listen to him. You know, you try to zone in and hone in on more things, right? But so for me, what the sort of first things I wrote down reminds me a lot, similar-ish vein, the Bad Loves around that time. Reminds a similar sort of vibe, that really cool, soulful kind of music, which I really dug. Great voice, great songs, really good production, really tasty guitar playing. So that's just what I sort of wrote down first time I listened to it. It's not an album that you can sort of date that it's from the 90s. Like, to me, you could release it now and it would sound current. It's sort of, it doesn't have, like, you know, other albums we've talked about in the past. You can sort of, you hear him and you go, okay, that's sort of late 80s, you know, you can sort of, but that, it doesn't sound 90s. That's sort of one of the things I wrote down. And then for me, stuff like the Ebo solo followed by the mandolin in 15 Feet of Snow, which that's another song. I knew the song, but I haven't listened to it in such a long time. Such a great song, like really, really good song. I mean, we'll go through standout tracks later, which I've got written down, but that's sort of what I main thing I wrote down. And I wrote down here, who was it produced by? So now I know. And because the production is killer.
Yeah.
Is he very well known outside of Australia? Because coming from Europe, I never heard of him before. But is he well known in other places? Because I mean, that album to me is like, that could be an American soul singer. You know, it's really well done in that sort of genre.
Yeah, he had a little bit of success in Europe, and obviously around that time of the album that Matt and I were talking about, Soul Lost Companion, he was in New York. He got a big record deal with Mammoth Records at the time. Probably don't have enough time for that story. Okay. But I know that at that time, a lot of record companies didn't know what to do with him, because they went, well, we got Lenny Kravitz and we've got Prince and we've got these kind of funk, rock, soul, R&B artists. We don't know quite where you fit. That's just all off the top of my head from stuff I read at the time, interviews with him. I'm a huge fan of Mark's. I've followed him since I was a kid. He's one of the reasons I play guitar and how I play guitar, and probably the artist I've seen the most, and probably Crying Shame's the song I've played the most in my life.
Yes.
But yeah, 94, at that time, I was 18. So I just started to go and see concerts. For me, it was, I was going down on my own. I was catching the train to Sydney from the southwest suburbs of Sydney, and with mates, and we would go in and we'd just go to the Metro. If someone was on at the Metro, we were at the Metro and we'd watch. And I think I've seen Diesel at the Metro like 12 times, maybe more.
Wow.
But yeah, that time was the first time I saw him, was at the Easter show. When I was 15, my mum took me, and it was in the showground. So I missed the Lobbyist tour because I was under 18 and there wasn't many all-age shows. And then this was the big moment. This is when he released a record on the year that I was 18. So I could see that tour, and oh my God, like ridiculous. The band was ridiculously good. And the live show, there's some video. I found a performance of his. He had this white vinyl like jumpsuit that he played in. So hence that kind of Prince thing with the soul and funk. And it was great. It was like Earth, Wind and Fire, with a headband and hair like Sylvester Stallone. So it was kind of like this disco Rambo. He kind of looks like, I don't know how else to put it, but it was for the time. It was great. So, but yeah, it was just a great time. He was live. He was doing covers of Family Affair. And he was just right into Sly and Stevie and Curtis Mayfield and the Isley Brothers. There's the interview with him that I watched for the research for this episode, and he said, during the writing of this record, that's what he was buried himself in. Isley Brothers, Curtis Mayfield,
you can tell,
Stone.
You can tell.
So standout tracks, Matt, for you.
I think I've already said it. So all come together. It's one song I never get sick of. So I could just put it on repeat. 15 Feet's great. Man, Sacred... Or
maybe just moments that stick out on the record for you?
Yeah, I mean, Sacred Cow is awesome, man. That wah guitar, which again, Het Fidelity, that wah pedal gets a workout. Unreal, man. So yeah, hearing that kind of vibe on Sacred Cow. And again, the production's so clever. Like the end of the solo, he wraps it up and then there's kind of panned guitars just before the verse or the vocal kicks back in, which is super cool. The song You is beautiful. Make It Right, just, man, amazing.
Yeah, it's that.
There's influence. What song is it? There's one song, and I think there's like a big guitar solo, and then it ends with a triangle. and then there's like silence, and then it goes back in the what? There's a I should have written that down, but I remember there was this. Well, yeah, don't worry. I remember there's one bit, and it's it's like a climax bit, and then it's like a triangle sound, like a ding, and it stops. Everything stops, and then the band comes back in. There's one track on this. I should have written that down. I just remembered that then. But anyway,
there's some really beautiful instrumentation. Like when you go through the liner notes of this record and you see the instruments that Mark played, like it's guitars, it's bass, it's percussion, it's backing vocals, it's 12 string, it's baritones, it's the choral sitar, which you'll hear on the solo of Come If You Dare.
Yeah.
There's that going on in there. He's playing a mellotron, glockenspiels.
There's that really. I wonder if that's a mellotron. There's in Love Again. There's that, which is it's all the piano, but then in the chorus there's that kind of. Is it a mellotron? That sound that comes into it. It's a really cool sound. Like it's like a string sound, but
Beatlesque, George
very
Martin.
Beatlesque.
All winds in.
Yeah.
And then there's the chimes going as well. I think at the same time.
That's a great song.
It's just like this. Yeah, it's like a wave coming in. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a mellotron. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Love Again. All the people with ASMR at home, just hearing that.
The paper rattling.
No, it doesn't say mellotron on Love Again, but there's strings. Marcus Holden arranged the strings on this record, and he's had a bit of history with Diesel on the Coat Hanger Antenna record and Diesel and Strings, the live thing that they did at the Vanguard.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So he keeps the same people around for a lot of long years, I'm having a problem with English today. But standouts, you wanted to get to your standouts, Gabor. What things stood out to you?
For me, probably my favorite album on the album is probably 15 Feet of Snow. That's a killer song. That's such a great song. Again, I love the production is just fantastic on it. The Ebo solo is so cool. The mandolin thing after it is so cool. The production is fantastic. Still Thinking About Your Love. The first kind of few bars, it reminds me of like a 70s cop show intro. It just has a kind of vibe to it, but it's cool. It's a very sort of soul funk kind of 70s, very cool vibe. And the bass line is killer on that too. And I love the Rhodes that sort of throughout the verse. That's a great song. All come together. Like I mentioned before, it's a song I've been playing for years, and when I listen to it, I just went, I'm playing completely wrong.
But are you following, because he did the acoustic version on Singled Out, and it's kind of evolved into this 12-string acoustic version live. So is that sort of the one you base your version on, or?
I don't remember what I based mine on, but mine, I think I go, is it in C?
Yeah.
I do it in A because I've got a lower voice, so I do it in a different, much lower as well. So I don't know where I got my version from. I think it evolved from, because we used to play it in a band, but we had a keyboard player, and it was a large Samoan lady singing who could reach all those notes that I can't reach. And it sort of evolved out of that when I started doing solo. I kind of did whatever version we did in that band, and it turned into what I'm doing. So I'm not sure where it came from, but yeah, it's quite different and much faster than the actual version that I do it. So I'm going to have to readjust my speed when it comes to it. And his version is so much better than mine. So, and Love Again, that was the other one I wrote down. Great ballad, great production, the strings. And I love the backing vocals. Is it the last song, Time?
Yeah.
Is it really low a bit?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like I wonder if they've slowed down the speed to pitch it down, or is it like an effect on the voice? Because it sounds really weird, that low backing.
He does a lot of that. He layers vocals crazy. But Mark Williams, the Show No Mercy, currently in Dragon, he does the backing vocals on that track as well.
Oh, okay.
So,
is it really low? It's that I don't know what the words are, but it's really low, and it almost sounds like back in the days, Roland used to make this thing where you could turn your voice from a male voice into a female voice. You know that thing? Yeah. It sounded like maybe something like that, like where it kind of went, oh, let's make these lovely female backup singers, let's make them sound like guys.
Yeah, wow.
So it has a weird sound to it, but yeah, it's again, it was another one of those ones. It sort of took me a little bit by surprise, and I bought it on iTunes. Great album. Like I was Sacred Cow as well. I love the intro as well. It's just the whole album. It's another one of those. It's just all good.
Very strong, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I find hard picking favorite tracks, because I listen to it kind of semi-regularly. It comes up. I'll just hit shuffle on Spotify, and very rarely do songs from this album pop up. Like all come together in 15 feet. But for me, when Get It On just slams in straight out of Chill Pill,
That's a
groove
cool track too, yeah.
and the bass and then the headphones, the panning guitar solo, takes you back to the Hendrix days, you know. And
is that in Time as well, where the bass kind of plays them? It's like chords and stuff, and he plays like almost the song starts with the bass. Is that Time? Is that the last track?
No, Time starts with that kind of like slow Leslie kind of guitar intro. It's kind of
because there's one track that starts, and again, I didn't write it down. I should have written it down, but it starts off with it sounds like a riff on a bass, and then it sort of evolves.
That's Still Thinking About Your Love, isn't it? Where it's like,
Is that Still Thinking About Your
no,
No, but like a slow song. One of the ballads.
God, I can't believe I can't bring it to mind.
I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
I should have written it down, but that's sorry.
Time is another one. Every time I get to that song, I go, why don't I just put that on first? Yeah. Just for its sheer lusciousness, everything, the layers, there's a lot going on, but it doesn't feel like it's too much. It's still sparse, but just beautiful. Mark Williams' distinctive voice, which we touched on, is amazing. And Mark's guitar work and that glockenspiel, you know, immediately I'm transported back to high school. And you know, but in a good way.
That's awesome.
I'm the same. Still thinking about your love. That the funk, the strings, the horns.
Yeah,
it's just
horns, man.
The horns throughout the album are great. Actually, there's a lot of horns on there, and throughout it, they all sound really good.
And just that you can tell that that Philly soul Motown thing where he was coming from with the interaction between the horns and the strings. There's no filler for me. There's occasionally a song on that record that I go, I can't listen to that anymore. But then I come back to it and I go, am I crazy? This is amazing. And 15 Feet of Snow's kind of like that every now and again. I go, I just need a break from that song. But then I come back to it and I go, what was I thinking? You know, that's crazy.
It's interesting when we're talking about the production, and I think you just touched on it, Rob. You know, or perhaps also Gabor, but it's never cluttered. There's lots going on, but that's the mastery of the production in action when you're enjoying all this ear candy, but it's not clogging up the space.
There's also quite a lot, like when you really listen to some of the guitars, there's a lot of effects. It's quite heavy on the effects, but again, it's really well used effects because they don't take the foreground. They just kind of make the parts work.
Yeah.
There's
some of the guitar sounds are really cool. There's some really different sort of guitar sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. There's even songs that have two basses.
Wow.
So he's got the acoustic bass going, and then you can hear him playing on the upper registers, like the little funky, you know, slappy, plucky bits. But you can hear underneath that acoustic bass going on, and when you check the liner notes, you can see that he played this bass and that bass,
Wow.
You know, and then baritones. So we'll get into the gear a bit later.
Okay, cool.
What if we take a short break, Rob? I know you've got some behind the scenes stuff. I can't wait to hear that. And Rob, we need to talk about you. Like you opened for Diesel, didn't you?
I've been lucky enough to be one of those solo acoustic, you know, original artists that have opened for him. And it was still one of the best experiences of my life. Shout out to Tanty for making that happen.
Oh,
Everyone knows Tanty.
Everyone knows Tansy. I didn't know she was booking people though. This is awesome. Next level.
Yeah, it was on the he did a run of shows midweek launching a record at the Vanguard. So he was doing a bunch of Wednesdays and managed to get on one of those. It was great. Did that with my mate Tino Marcocci.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Tino. Yeah, that was some great memories. And I got to go back the next week to see the next show and then hang out backstage. And man, we just talked like we're talking now.
Really?
Talked about pedals and guitars and amps, and it was it's fantastic just to be, because I never wanted to be a fanboy, and I'm probably coming across as one. Sorry.
That's what this show's for, though. It's all good.
Yeah. We are. We're totally fanboying out. But I always wanted to make those moments that I got to meet him, not so much, for use of a better term, but on his level, like as a musician, and not as someone coming up and going, "I love you. Can I have your autograph?"
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed to have had that chance. So yeah.
Nice. Now, Gabor, you started pointing to yourself. Have you opened for Diesel as well?
We have, yes, in a different sort of thing. So this is he came up. I reckon this would have been maybe 2005, 2006, something like that.
Yeah.
A new radio station started up here called Zinc FM, and they had for the opening, they got Jamie Dunn, who was aggro. For people that live in Australia. He was aggro, and Jo Beth Taylor did a morning show.
Okay, yeah.
So they brought them up here to sort of launch the channel. And I think for like a year or so, they did the morning show. And for the launch, they had Diesel play, but just by himself, solo, just acoustic. And so the covers band I was in at the time, this was at Noosa Surf Club. My covers band at the time, we opened for Diesel. So it was funny because we played for maybe 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of I think it was it was only open to, it wasn't open to the public. It was only open to people within the radio station and people that sort of sort of an industry thing. And we played for about 2 hours. And I think at the time, we were like a maybe 6-piece band, 7-piece band, sort of playing kind of funky R&B soul covers, like corporate stuff, right? We had a talk about it every once in a while, a rather large Samoan lady singing for us, who had a very soulful voice, and we had, keyboards and saxophone. We had this big band, and we played, and it was all cool. And then he came out just by himself, solo, just with his tiny little Maton mini guitar, and just blew everyone away. He was really, really good. Just super impressive. Just as one guy, how he just completely took control of the room. Like, he was very charismatic, because I've never seen him before, and I don't know that much about him. Like I said earlier on, all I know was sort of what I knew when I first moved to Australia. He seemed to be one of the it guys, the Australian it guys at the time. Yeah. But all I remember was he was really nice. He was quite short. That's the other thing I remember, because I'm rather tall, but he was quite short compared to me. And he was this little guy with his little guitar, really low. Yeah. He had it, the acoustic guitar.
It's the coolest.
But his massive sound, and he was really, really good. And just the whole room just focused on him. Wow. After there's this 6 or 7-piece band or whatever we were at the time playing, and no one gave a crap. And then he comes up and he just takes complete control of the room. So yeah, that was my Diesel experience. And we talked maybe for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I think he liked some of the stuff we played. He sort of was backstage before he got on.
Yep.
And we were playing a lot of, at the time, it was sort of very funky. We played a lot of, we played some meters, and we played, because we were that sort of kind of band.
Nice.
And we had horns and stuff as well. And Aretha Franklin and, that sort of soul R&B kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think he liked what we did anyway, and he was and he seemed really nice and approachable, and then he went on and just rocked the house.
Yeah, very cool, awesome. Well, we'll take a short break. You guys are legends, touring with the aforementioned iconic album masters. We'll take a short break. We'll come back with some behind the scenes stuff, because I think Rob's got a big stash of cool stuff to tell us. Woohoo! This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. All right, welcome back. We're talking Diesel's solid state rhyme. Rob, you got a stash of fun facts and stuff.
I do. So, thanks again to Rob Wolf, keyboard extraordinaire, a guy I'm very lucky to know.
Wow, awesome.
Mostly through King Tide. I used to do some live sound for reggae bands on the northern beaches. Yeah. And got to know a lot of these guys, Declan Kelly, and that were all in these reggae bands. A killer. It was a great time. But yeah, Rob, just a lovely guy. And he was called in on the track, so he did all the keyboards apart from the odd thing that Mark does. So B3s, Rhodes, Hammonds, all those things, that's Rob. And so he said basically him and drummer Kane Baker were called in for what Mark called tracking camp. So it was at Jimmy Barnes's house. Yep. And both Jimmy's wife Jane and Diesel's wife Jep, who's Jane's sister, they basically were their full-time cooks. So he said they kept them well fed and they just stayed there tracking nonstop. So he said basically what they did, he used a clavinet, the B3 and his Rhodes. He said Mark's demos were basically complete. And then they just came in and tracked over the top. And recreated his demos, adding a bit of feel, etc. And he said Mark was really switched on. He knew exactly what he wanted and was meticulous to the point where he knew when he wanted the Leslie fast and the Leslie slow and like all those instructions, like right at the right time. And Rob basically said him and Kane were just, babies. He thought, I'm all that when he got there, but he realized, looking back that, he was just a baby too in that environment. And he went on and played with Mark live for a lot of years because Mark, they had the 4-piece. So Lee Maloney and Richie and Rob and Diesel, they did like 10, maybe more than 10 years together. Wow. So yeah, that was just some memories from Rob's time tracking this record at Jimmy Barnes's house.
Nice.
He said the other thing he said was the piano, they positioned the piano at the top of the staircase in the main body of the house. So I'm guessing the main living area.
Yeah.
And then it was recorded from there, but it sounds very Zeppelin, Headley Grange with Jimmy Barnes.
Yeah. Well, I worked there after Jimmy had sold the place, so someone else owned it, but it was still available as a studio.
Cool.
So you could, you could work there. The piano was still in the foyer kind of thing. Studio was downstairs, and you could live there, and you could. Yeah, it was awesome. Tennis court. I think there was a pool, although I was there in winter. Every time I went there, it was winter, or just it was always cold because it was in Bowral. I'm not sure, but amazing.
I spent my first wedding anniversary in Bowral. Boy, was it cold.
Where's Bowral? Where is it?
Like South Sydney, like south of Sydney, like far south.
Okay.
Yeah. Sort of inland.
Inland a bit,
inland from Wollongong, I guess, if you look down across the map. But yeah, that was a heady time. Yeah, I used to hear the stories of that house, of what went on down there.
Yeah, right.
Like his yearly block parties that he used to put on.
Well, they're all still down there in the Southern Highlands now, again.
Yeah, right.
Jimmy and the family. Yeah.
Crazy. So, some stories behind the songs that people might know or might not. So, we mentioned guests on this record, Vanetta Fields. He talks about on that podcast with Jason McNamara. People should check it out. It's over 3 hours long.
Whoa.
And as someone who's followed Mark's career, he talks about a lot of things he's never spoken about before, which was why I had to go there for some of this research, because he hadn't really have a body of work regarding what he spoke about at that time and things. So
I'll add a link to that. If you want to send it to me, Rob, I'll add that so people can check it out.
Yeah, cool. Mostly he was in like Smash Hits magazines and Dolly,
Yes.
like not a lot of substance in those magazines. But yeah, Sacred Cow, the Jerry Jones electric coral sitar was used. And people would know that famed baritone that he used on Come to Me, which is another Jerry Jones. That's a Longhorn.
Yeah.
And on the track Bad Seed, that fifth that he's creating, Digitech whammy pedal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Series 1.
That's a cool riff too. That intro riff, the main riff to that. That's a cool riff. Yeah.
Yeah, and to get the snare sound on 15 Feet of Snow, he said they couldn't quite get it. So they flipped it over and hit the underside of the snare to get that snare sound. Just that goes to what Rob said about how meticulous he was about getting certain sounds, and maybe why it doesn't sound dated is because everything was done to serve the song specifically. It wasn't really era related.
Wow.
No, that's cool.
For anybody that may not have heard this record or not listened to it in a while, I went through the second time listening for this, just listening to the bass playing, and it's off the chart. Like as much as it is a guitar record, it's a bass record as well.
Yeah.
And fantastic. Gear. So should we talk about gear?
Yeah,
yes, please.
yeah. Well, as you said, there's not a lot of info about this side, so I can't wait.
No, so a lot of this is off the top of my head from the time and like stopping a couple of YouTube clips to trigger my memory.
Yeah.
But at the time on tour, and anybody in the comments that wants to correct me, he was using Music Man silhouettes. He had like live, he was using a green sparkle silhouette model.
Wow.
Okay.
And I think from memory, he had a purple one and a white one as well. He was also using a silver sparkle Les Paul. So I don't know if anyone remembers those ones that were covered in the silver and black speckle.
Yeah.
So he had one of those. A white Floyd Rose Strat. Mostly he had these custom quad boxes on stage that had solid state in the Marshall kind of logo.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
So,
That's cool.
you can see, people can't see at home, but behind me I've got a Marshall logo there. So he had solid state on the front with these kind of cream glitter fronts on these custom cabs. Now I know these custom cabs because I owned one that I bought from Guitar Crazy in Coogee, who had his rig from this era. And it was a Pete Cornish rig.
Oh, wow.
Was
That's expensive stuff.
Rack drawers with pedals in them, and then the full switcher on the ground. So when you see any of the footage from that era, like the Australia Day concert, the ARIA Awards and stuff, all you see is like this big black control panel with huge silver buttons.
Yeah.
Like there's no pedals on the ground bar a wah pedal and maybe an expression pedal.
Yeah.
And this Guitar Crazy, they picked it up at an auction at some stage, and so they had it for sale for the longest time.
That would have cost a fortune because the Cornish stuff, I mean, even just buying his leads is ridiculous.
Yeah. It was an insane rig. They had it for I think they had it for 15 grand for a while on the site, and then they dropped it to 10, and then they started just bitsing it out, which is how I got the quad. Now the quad was crazy marine ply, oversized 412, loaded with 4 EV12Ls.
Oof.
So
cool.
it weighed so much. It was insane. It was a 2-man lift on the best of days. And for anyone listening that has played the Three Wise Monkeys in Sydney, I used to drag that in there up the stairs. But funny story, to just digress for a second, I was teaching guitar to the owner of the Three Wise Monkeys' son. in Bronte. And I remember just saying to him one day, "Oh, mate, because he hit me up because I was playing there." And I said, "Oh, can you do me a favor?" And he's like, "Yeah, what?" I said, can I use the dumb waiter just to get my stuff up? Like, I don't care. I don't want to put the drums in there. Don't worry about those guys. But I've got this quad box that weighs like 60 kilos. Can I put it in the dumb waiter? And he went, "Yeah, mate, no worries. Just tell the staff I said it was all right." So when every other band, sorry, guys and girls, were told they couldn't use the dumb waiter because they broke it every other weekend, I still got to use it to put that quad box in, and that was, and I ended up partsing out that quad box too. There's a story I'll tell you guys off air about that rig that I can't tell on air, but it's
Okie dokie.
It's a wonderful story. That was it. He started playing Gretches around that time, especially that Piers Crocker crutch guitar that was made for him, which, shock horror, again in that podcast, he gives all his guitars away. He gives them to family, he gives them to friends, he gives them to charities, all kinds of things. So he doesn't have that anymore. He gave it to his nephew or something.
Wow.
So that was the black, like sort of like a cross between a Penguin and a Duojet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And in the Get It On clip, there's what looks like a 6125 single anniversary. So they were the main guitars. Marshall heads he was using at that time, so I'm not sure what ones they were. I'm sure they're like 800s. And he was the first Australian endorsee of the V guitars from Roland.
Oh, wow.
Not sure when that fell, but yeah, he was doing the VG guitar tours and clinics all around Australia. So that featured on the floor at some stage, but I think it might have been after this tour.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's sort of the gear roundup. It was really hard to find what he recorded with.
Yeah.
Because he demoed a lot of that stuff on his own. And there's just no information. He doesn't really talk about it. But it does seem like a lot of those guitars that were in his arsenal. He had a Gibson Melody Maker that was a gift to him on that first Jimmy Barnes tour. Jimmy bought him that.
Oh, wow.
And the original Strat that he had the special badge on, that ended up being the signature model. That would have probably been around, as well as his Telly that he's been playing a lot of lately. But the effects are anybody's guess, but just from off the top of my head, that pedal drawer had like a Mootron in it, chorus pedal, a whole bunch of like little things like that. I think it might have been a full tone, full drive 2 at some stage. Wah pedals he was using, I think he was just using the Crybaby in those days before he went on to the Buddha and then the Vox wahs that he uses now. But that kind of sums up all of my notes, I think.
That's awesome, man. Good deep dive there, man.
Yeah, I couldn't miss the opportunity. People should go and revisit this record because it's
great. It's a killer album, yeah.
So good. Get you up and dance. Fantastic.
Yeah. Man, thanks, Rob. Thanks for bringing it to us. That's
thanks, man.
That's pleasure. A great, iconic album. Rob, for people to follow you and what you get up to, where should they look out for?
Yeah, just Google Living in the 70s or Facebook Living in the 70s Live. That's my main gig.
So I have a little YouTube channel called the SuperFunAwesomeHappyTime Pedal Show. No gaps, all one word. And I, look at pedals and Vox wahs and all that sort of stuff. Just two nerdy guys sitting around giggling whilst playing with pedals and amps and guitars and stuff. So check that out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See ya.
All right, thanks for joining us for another Guitar Speak podcast, Iconic Albums. I've really enjoyed putting these conversations together with Rob and Gabor, and it's been a really cool addition to our podcast show, which every week has deep dive one-on-one interviews as well. That's been our bread and butter for the last 5 years, and that will be continuing as well. Thanks to Fretboard Biology for sponsoring today's episode. Check out the links in the show notes. All right, my name's Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. And in the words of Michael Schenker, German guitarist from UFO, the Scorpions, and MSG,
keep rocking, keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking indeed. I'll catch you next time. Bye now.